Welcome to the Simply Biblical Podcast. My name is Jonathan McAtee, and I'm joined by my co-host, Nick Stallone. Nick, how you doing?
Doing great, John. Recording during the Knicks game. We're up by 31, so it's turned out to be a great night. Recording with you. I'm excited, especially after last week not getting it in, because you were sick.
Yeah,
Jonathan.
it's my bad.
But I'm glad you're feeling better. Yeah, his voice was all chopped up and everything too.
That was crazy.
It wasn't just a sickness.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Yeah, he couldn't.
It
even
wouldn't
power
have
through
worked. It wouldn't have worked to power through. You guys would not have wanted to listen to me. That's for sure.
Yeah, it was kind of scary.
Yeah. But we are talking about the second I am statement. And John, I am the light of the world. You can find it in John 8 and 9. And I love how it is really the whole thing. You can't just read the verse or the statement, but these whole two chapters really expand on what he's talking about. But it's going to be great. And before we get started, I want to just remind you guys we're talking about the I am statements. And if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, this I am phrase is ego eimi in Greek, means I am. And Jesus uses it all the time, and especially in the book of John, to reference the divine name, Yahweh, in the Old Testament. And so a lot of times he'll use it, and he's not just saying, I am the light of the world, and how we would read it in English, but this I am statement and this phrase also points back to the name of God himself, and that he's also claiming to be God, which is huge. If you see just a normal Jewish teacher saying, I am God, that's pretty wild. And so that's why we want to jump into these statements. And so I'm going to read John 8:12 through 20 real quick, and then I'm going to share some context. So it says, starting in verse 12, again, Jesus spoke to them, saying, I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will not walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So the Pharisees said to him, you are bearing witness about yourself. Your testimony is not true. Jesus answered, even if I do bear witness about myself, my testimony is true, for I know where I came from and where I am going. But you do not know where I come from or where I am going. You judge according to the flesh, but I judge no one. Even if I do judge, my judgment is true, for it is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. In your law, it is written that the testimony of two people is true. I am the one who bears witness about myself, and the Father who sent me also bears witness about me. They said to him, therefore, who is your Father? Jesus answered, you know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. These words he spoke in the treasury as he taught in the temple, but no one arrested him because his hour had not yet come. So Jesus here is saying, I am the light of the world. In the background to this, and right before this, what I just read, again, this is a huge passage, and so we're not going to read all of it. That would take a long time. But the background to this is it's happening during the Feast of Tabernacles. And if you think of the tabernacle as like a tent, that's what it was in the Old Testament. It's celebrating the time in the wilderness when the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness. And it was celebrating that time when God protected them, and he led them with the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud. In tabernacles, they had to live in tents because God was making them move around all the time. They couldn't, set up permanent shelters and things like that. But this is a 7-day festival where the Israelites would celebrate God's faithfulness to them during this journey. But what is most significant about this is the illumination ceremony. So this ceremony included 4 massive lampstands that were lit, producing a huge light that many say would light the whole city of Jerusalem. So this was, 4 huge lampstands that would light a ton of the city. And this was to symbolize and honor God's pillar of fire that guided them in the wilderness. So, if you think about that background, when Jesus stands before the Pharisees and he claims to be the light of the world, he's making a wild claim. He, again, is not just saying that he's bringing guidance, but he is identifying himself as the very presence of God that Israel had celebrated for years and years. He's essentially saying to them that he is the light that led the Israelites through the wilderness. The God who led them through the wilderness was now standing before them, embodied in the person of Jesus. Jesus, he doesn't just emit light. He doesn't bring the light. He does not reveal the light. He is the light. And that is huge. And I love just how big of a statement he's making, especially in light of the ceremony that happened right before this.
Yeah, for sure. It's so awesome how many times like you could look at these scriptures and just by looking at the surrounding context, it will illuminate to stay in the theme of light. It illuminates so much more of what Jesus was actually saying. Because you could look at this and just see like that he's saying he's the light of the world, that he's here to bring light and joy and everything that that entails. But then to know also what the immediate surrounding context adds to it is just so important. And really going through this, like writing it and doing all the research, I learned so much more about this statement. And every statement that we've only done one so far, but each statement that we've done, the two, I've learned so much more about what it is. That's what's so fun about this too. We just get to learn, as we're kind of teaching as we speak. We also learn so much as we go about it. But to continue on, John, he uses contrast many times throughout his gospel. And one of the most significant is light versus darkness. And John, he uses light and darkness to represent a cosmic conflict between Jesus and the world. And so Jesus is the light of the world, the one who brings divine revelation, while darkness represents the spiritual blindness and moral evil that rejects him. And this contrast starts right from the opening lines of John 1. It says in John 1, 1 through 4, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. And so here again, we even see the Genesis language that we've talked about that John loves to use, but he's referencing Jesus as being light. And then the contrast between light and darkness. Light shines in the darkness. Darkness does not overcome light. It's important to remember that whatever themes show up in the beginning of a book, biblical book, are crucial. So John is telling us here that this is a very important theme that he wants us to keep in mind as we read throughout the rest of his gospel. And darkness also isn't just a neutral, right? It is defying God's sovereignty. Darkness isn't sitting on a fence between good and evil. There is no fence. It's either light or darkness. Darkness is a moral rebellion, a spiritual rejection of Jesus. And John later will say that people love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. So building on that, he's essentially saying that darkness isn't just a condition, it's something that people can choose. We find that in John 3:16 through 21. It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe is condemned already, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the judgment. The light has come into the world. Jesus has come into the world, and people loved the darkness rather than the light. People love the world rather than Jesus because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his works should be exposed. But whoever does what is true comes to the light, so that it may be clearly seen that his works have been carried out in God. So darkness, it's a rejection, a spiritual rejection of Jesus, but light does what? It reveals. It is a revelation, truth made visible, and it guides and gives life. It was a concept that is very familiar to the people of Israel. John just talked about it, how they used the light to remember God leading them through the wilderness when they were fleeing Egypt. And then it's also a very common theme in the Old Testament. And a very popular verse is Psalm 119, 105. It says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." And I think this is really interesting because, again, John, how does John's gospel open?
John 1:1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Mm-hmm. And Psalm says that your word is my lamp. The word was God. Jesus is the word that John was describing in the beginning, also using the lamp reference and also using him as a light to my path. And so I just think that was such a
Yeah.
cool, interesting connection that you can make between the two.
Yeah. It's the hyperlinks that we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Yeah.
everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Literally, yeah. And so Jesus, when he claims to be the light of the world, he's also claiming to be that dividing line, not the fence between the two, but the line that divides, that separates darkness from the light. That everyone who encounters him is, in a metaphorical sense, standing at the intersection of light and darkness and has the option to choose light or darkness, which sheds light on his statement in John 8, verse 19. They said to him, therefore, where is your Father? Jesus answered, you know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. And so he is the one who reveals. He is the light that
Mm-hmm.
guides, that reveals, that gives that revelation of God. And so there's no way to God, without Jesus. So John's framework, again, it gives no space for that middle ground. He's letting his audience know, he's letting us know that they either step into the light, i.e. Jesus, or stay in the darkness. And this tension builds throughout his whole gospel.
Yeah. I love how it really is like you either choose Jesus or you are in darkness. And John just makes it very clear. And I just like that
Mm-hmm.
two-sidedness where John makes it so clear you're either here or you're here. There's no middle ground. You choose Jesus or you don't know God and you remain in darkness. And just that reminder of there's no other way. There's no other way to the Father except through Jesus. If you don't believe in Jesus, if you don't accept him as the Son of God, the one from God, then you don't know God. And even talking to these like Pharisees who are supposed to know God, who are supposed to know the scriptures and literally are supposed to be worshiping the God of their ancestors, apparently are not. They are worshiping a false God who they made up because they're not accepting the Son of God.
Yeah, no, it's so fun. It's so funny because we like have to work to make all these correlations and to see the hyperlinks and all that. But when Jesus is talking to them, this is what's ringing through their mind immediately. Like they don't have to go to other scriptures and remind themselves. Like they knew the scriptures front and back, and still they couldn't figure it out. And we're about to go into something into the next chapter, which reveals even more. And it's just crazy how it just really shows how much of a decision that has to be to not believe. Like it takes more, like I always think that, like I look at people and I'm like, man, how do people really not believe in Jesus? And it's really just that decision. Like they're choosing not to believe. Like you may just, like there are certain circumstances where, I mean, cards are stacked against certain individuals, but largely like it is so blatantly obvious that there is a divine creator behind the world. And and I feel like, yeah, it just takes more faith to not believe, to refute all the evidence that scripture and archaeology reveals than it is to simply just believe. And and a higher authority.
Uh, yeah. Well, going into that next chapter, chapter 9, we get a story of a healing of a blind man. And of course, like this is perfect. This, like I said, all eight, chapter 8, even chapter 7 through 9, it works together. And I love that, John's making an argument in his, the way that he's putting his gospel together, because he could have, added another story in between or something like that. Not making it up, but saying like a different story that Jesus did or something like that.
Okay.
So getting into chapter 9. We can see this theology that Jesus is saying played out in a tangible way. Immediately after Jesus claims to be the light of the world, he heals a man born blind. And this is not a coincidence. John places this miracle right after Jesus' statement, and this miracle is intended to depict what Jesus' statement meant. The man's blindness represented humanity's spiritual condition apart from Christ, unable to see the truth. In other words, apart from Christ, we are spiritually blind and we live in darkness, like we were talking about. But what does light do? It reveals. When Jesus restores his sight, it's not just a physical healing. It's symbolic of a spiritual realization of who Jesus is. John 9:1-7 says, as he passed by, he saw a man blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, It was not that this man sinned or his parents, but that the works of God might be displayed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Having said these things, he spit on the ground and made mud with the saliva. Then he anointed the man's eyes with the mud and said to him, Go wash in the pool of Siloam, which means sent. So he went and washed and came back seeing. So after this moment, everyone who came across this man was confused. Wasn't this a blind guy? Is this not the look, or the dude who is blind, or is this a lookalike? And he proclaimed that he was healed by Christ and calls Jesus a prophet when the Pharisees questioned him. The Pharisees could not believe that Jesus healed him. They went to this blind man's parents questioning if it was really the same man or if he was really truly blind since birth. They were even upset that Jesus healed him on the Sabbath. The Pharisees went to this man again and said this, starting in verse 29. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from. The man answered, Why, this is an amazing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but if anyone is a worshiper of God and does his will, God listens to him. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a man born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. They answered him, You were born in utter sin, and you teach us? And they cast him out. And this displays what we were talking about earlier, the light versus dark theme in John. Jesus performs this miracle, and he revealed something. While the blind man was open to receive not only the healing, but also the revelation of who Jesus is, the Pharisees chose to be in the darkness and spiritually blind to his work. In verse 35, it says, Jesus heard that they cast him out, and having found him, he said, Do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered, And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? Jesus said to him, You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. He said, Lord, I believe, and worshipped him. Jesus said, For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees near him heard these things and said to him, Are we also blind? Jesus said to them, If you were blind, you would have no guilt. But now that you say we see, your guilt remains. So through this blind man, we see this picture clearly painted out. And this, he initially did not know Jesus and then gradually came to understand who Jesus was. At first, he calls him a prophet, but by the end, he realizes that Jesus is Lord and even worships him. While the Pharisees go in the opposite direction. These ones that were supposed to see, they investigate the miracle, they question the man, they reject Jesus, and the ones who have spiritual insight are actually the most blind. And Jesus makes it explicit at the end. He says that he came so that the blind may see, and those that think they see may be blind. And again, talking about what we were saying with the confrontation, Jesus, like he says, I forget where it's at, but he didn't come to bring peace but a sword. That there was going to be some conflict that happens, because if you choose Jesus, you have light in life. If you don't, then you have destruction and death. And I just going back to how Jesus performed this miracle. He spits in the mud, or spits in the dirt, makes mud, and puts it on his eyes. And that seems so gross and weird, and I guess it is gross and weird. But thinking back to Genesis, how did God create people? He made them out of the dust of the ground and formed them like a potter is forming clay. And Jesus makes the clay / mud in the dirt and heals him. And so he's showing who he is in many ways, and I love that he does that. What do you think about that, Nick?
Yeah, well, first off, shout out Mike Todd with that demonstration.
Oh, that's crazy.
But yeah, no, this whole, like you were saying, 7 through 9, before actually like studying this passage, Jesus being with the I am statement, I am the light of the world, I never really made the connection of them being all together. But man, it was so like eye-opening to like actually put them side by side, like that this was literally the theology played out in a physical way. And it just showed the contrast, so it shows it so well, that I mean the blind man, like he had his sight restored, healed, but it's not just like a physical healing. And that wasn't just the point of it. The point of it was to reveal Christ's identity immediately after saying that he is the light of the world. Light being something that reveals, something that opens, and this man's eyes are opened immediately after the Pharisees choose to be blind, stay in darkness. And it's literally, like you said, just a perfectly laid out, painted picture of the theology that he just spoke about in the previous chapter. One, like literally, when you start making connections, everything just starts to unfold into the other, and it's wild.
Yeah, that's why I like reading. Like when I'm reading my Bible, I read a whole book through, and I don't, just skip around, because then you can
Mm-hmm.
see things like this where, oh, these whole 2-3 chapters, it's all working together to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, context is king.
Yeah, no, literally. Sometimes you can still even miss it though. Like I've read through John and I've never really made a connection, but studying it is right there. It's blatant.
Yeah, true. It's good.
Yeah. Well, continuing on, so when Jesus says, I am the light of the world, he's not just describing a role, he's not just describing his role, he's defining his identity. He is the ultimate revelation of God. In a world filled with confusion and competing truths, spiritual darkness, Jesus doesn't just point toward truth. He's saying that he is the truth made visible. This has several implications. It means that knowing God is inseparable from knowing Jesus. If you know God, you must know Jesus. If you know Jesus, you must know God. You cannot find light apart from Jesus. He's the revealer of the character of God, the reality of sin, and the way of salvation himself. Everything comes into clarity through him. No other religion, no belief system, no amount of good deeds can reveal God. Only Christ can reveal God. It is such a powerful example of Christ's nature that he is divine, he is the revealer of truth, and he is sovereign over all, for all. Ego eimi, the light of the world. I am the light of the world. And light, like we've been saying, doesn't just illuminate, it also exposes. It reveals what's really there, lying in the darkness. And that's why Jesus' presence is so polarizing. For some, it can bring healing, clarity, and life, and for others, it confronts, it unsettles, and ultimately can be rejected as a result of those. And when Jesus says that I am the light of the world, it's both an invitation and a challenge. It's an invitation to step out of darkness and into light, but also a confrontation because stepping into the light means allowing everything to be seen for what it truly is. And in a world full of darkness, light can often be uncomfortable, right? When everything's exposed, it can be just that uncomfortable. You don't we like keeping
Yeah.
our history, our past, even things in our present secret from uh, other people. And nobody really likes their whole life exposed. But when Jesus is truly Lord over your life and he is the light of your life, all of that has to come into the open. And a good example is kind of like when you're sitting in a completely dark room, or if you just wake up and you or someone turns the lights on and you're kind of like blinded. At first, it's super uncomfortable. It's literally almost blinding. And you can just choose to keep your eyes closed, or you can choose to let your eyes adjust to the light. And as your eyes adjust to the light, you can begin to see your surroundings. You can begin to see what's around you. And though at first it might hurt your eyes, it's uncomfortable, it's unsettling, that same light is the only thing that lets you actually see what was once in the darkness. And that's what Jesus does for us. Initially, he can be uncomfortable. His presence can seem painful as he begins to reveal things to you. But the longer that you stand in the light, you will begin to see the truth as he reveals what's necessary for you at that specific time. And so, again, it's a choice. You can choose to close your eyes to the light of Christ, or you can choose to open your eyes and let your eyes adjust to the truth and all the things that Christ is revealing to you.
Yeah. I like that example because like the longer you're living with Christ, the longer you're saved and are walking with him, the more the more I guess used to him you are. I mean,
Hmm.
there's always like more, of course, and there's always
Right.
more to grow in and more to change and things like that. But like I don't know, I guess you just kind of you're more used to the uncomfortableness. I think that might be what
Hmm.
it is. Um, so yeah, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he says his sheep know his voice, and I think in like more facets than just that. Like his sheep know how he walks, how he leads,
Yeah,
the way that he reveals things to you. And yeah, I mean, it's like it's like anything. Like working out at first is super uncomfortable. That first week is extremely painful. You're sore and places you didn't know could be sore, but the longer
yeah,
you stick with it, one, the more results you see, and two, the less painful it gets. And the less uncomfortable everything is. So yeah, it's the longer you stick with Christ, though at first it can be uncomfortable, and for some it's not uncomfortable, but for some it can be very uncomfortable, very challenging, as a lot of things in your past come up and get revealed. But the longer that you're in the light, the less blinding that light seems, and the less you want to be in the darkness. And
yeah. Well, we've got some questions that we kind of want to talk about that we wrote down. The first one is, how does understanding the Feast of Tabernacles change the weight of Jesus' statement, "I am the light of the world"? And when I read that, I love I love this question because it really gets to the heart of how context can be so helpful and things like that. Because just the statement itself, and just if you read this passage, even if you um, are reading, chapters 8 and 9 together, and you get that awesome kind of argument uh, of John of what Jesus is saying and how he lives it out and things like that, you can still get so much more from understanding the Feast of Tabernacles context. Because like it's great on its own, but when you realize Jesus was in this group, in this crowd, with all these people around him, celebrating God's light in the wilderness. And he's saying, I am the light of the world. Like, yes, this is great and this is awesome, and God did great things here. I am that. I am the light of the world. And you can see, like, if you just imagine yourself in that space, like, whoa, this guy right here just said that. And in this crowd full of people, he just said that this was him. Like, that just changes everything. And like, I like to put myself in that kind of situation and think of how would I react to that, because that would be crazy. And right before this, in John chapter 7 verse 37, so right before this, it says, on the last day of the feast, the great day, Jesus stood up and cried out, if anyone thirsts, let him come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. And so this was on the last day of the feast, is when all of this took place. So this happened right before. And one of the parts of this ceremony was them dumping water, symbolizing the water that came from the rock in the wilderness. And it says that Jesus cried out. So he just, in a big crowd, everything was silent. They were dumping this water and doing, this ceremony. And out of nowhere, imagine standing next to Jesus, and all of a sudden there's a dude just yelling, if anyone is thirsty, come to me to drink. That's wild. And then the same thing with the light. Like, Jesus is just in this crowd yelling at the top of his lungs, and you're like, whoa, that's crazy. So all that to say, just picturing the act, like this actually happened, that Jesus was just yelling in a crowd. It's just, I don't know. Part of it's funny, but part of it's like, whoa, that's like, that would get your attention.
Yeah, I feel like the more that I picture like these moments actually unfolding in time, I'm like, I would have been with one of the Pharisees. Like, there's no way this guy is who he says he is. Like, if you think about it, like nowadays when stuff like that
Yeah.
happens, everybody's like looking to their neighbor. Like, if somebody's screaming in church, you're like, yo, somebody got to get this crazy person out of here. But I, yeah, this
Yeah.
statement, understanding it in its proper context is, I mean, it really just changes the whole thing. And I think, because I agree with everything that you said, but I want to take it even like a different way. Him saying, I am the light of the world, I think the world part would have been crazy for them as well. Because, I mean, this was their festival, this was their celebration, this was their God. And I mean, you even think about as Christianity unfolded, there's a huge dispute between the Jews and the Gentiles, the Jews who became Christians and the Gentiles. And there was all that comfortability that played out there. I think even just him saying that the light of the world, because these lights
True.
lit their whole city. It lit, uh, it said like in the time where they would would do the tabernacle or have all their booths, it would light every single square inch of their surrounding, like everything that they had was lit
Mm-hmm.
by these four lamps, these massive 75-foot lamp posts. And him saying that he is the light of the world is I think the world part would be like insane, because the whole time that God is with Israel, God is with Israel, and Jesus is coming and he's extending it to the whole world. I think also that was probably something that was super hard for them to wrap their minds around.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. And it makes me think of like the light of the world, like Genesis chapter 1, before even the sun was made, God said, let there be light, and there was light.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus is that. Like, he is the light. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty cool. Light of the
Mm-hmm.
whole world. Not just the Jews, not just the Israelites, but the entire world. That's cool.
Yeah. So thinking of that, the light of the whole world, why do you think that some people in the world resist the light even though it reveals truth? And what are some kind of modern ways that even the everyday Christian might prefer darkness or sneak into darkness without really realizing it.
Well, I like the way that you took that, because we could talk about like unbelievers and how they're not, uh, you know, following Jesus, they're in the darkness and things like that. But talking about like how believers, even and Christians, how we can sometimes prefer darkness. Uh, I think a lot of it is accountability. Like if we want to be our own person and have our own private
Hmm.
lives, and we don't want sometimes the accountability that we need, and um, like your own personal walk with the Lord. Darkness can look like good things sometimes, dark or like at least neutral things. Darkness can um, creep into our lives through all kinds of ways, even just like entertainment or things that will distract us from what we should be doing and focusing on uh, uh, our lives and the things that God has put us here for and things like that. But yeah, darkness, we got to get rid of that darkness. What do you think?
Yeah, I like what you were saying on accountability because I think that is like a huge thing. I mean, a lit room is a lit room, but once somebody else is in the room with you, seeing all the mess that's in there, it's a whole new story, you know? And I think
Yeah.
that's crazy. When I was first kind of taking my faith seriously, and I had a lot of people who were helping me become more accountable and kind of learning how to navigate all that. One of my good buddies told me that skeletons can't, uh, what do you say? Skeletons don't decay in the darkness. You have to bring them out in the light. And I think that's what a big thing that we prefer, or we kind of slip into darkness, is all the things that we've done, you know, the shame, the guilt that we feel. We keep all that in darkness, and rather than letting God shine through our mistakes. I mean, you think about people through the Bible and how God used all their mistakes. Paul talked about how his weakness, God is he shines through his weakness greater than his strengths. But we're so quick to hide all our weaknesses. We're so quick to, you know, boast in the things that we're strong in rather than let God work through what we're weak in.
Hmm.
I think that's something that, man, yeah, we love to hide, to keep our weaknesses under the bed in the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, we need people around us. That's the goal. Like that's why there is the church, the people of God. But I think if we just use the church how a lot of people, go there on Sundays and listen to a sermon and go home, like that's not what the church is meant to be. Like there is no accountability with that. Then that's just like one day a week and you don't have to talk about anything that's going on at home. You can just go and then go home. But the church having actual people around you who will actually help you walk with the Lord. And that really goes with the next one, our next question. If Jesus is truly the light of the world, what does it look like practically to walk in the light on a daily basis? What actually changes in someone's life? What do you think about that?
I think it's kind of like that blind man. Like it's a gradual change for, that's how it was for me at least. Like when I first came to Christ and I started, you know, actually walking with him, taking my faith seriously, I didn't have like a quick like moment where everything just shifted and I was just, you know, a complete 180. For me, I know that happens for some people, but for me, it was a gradual kind of like changing the way that I walk, the way that I talk. Um, wasn't immediate. It was kind of like how the blind man first thought that Jesus was just a prophet, but then the second time he went to him, he worshipped him as Lord over his life. And every time that would go to God, I'd just get like a deeper understanding of him, a deeper understanding of what I need to work on in my life, whether that be, you know, stop hanging out with certain friends, stop listening to certain music, you know, cutting certain things out of my life that were inviting me back into darkness, that were pulling me
Hmm.
into darkness. I think, yeah, just allowing him the space to just light up every room in of your life, every area of your life, and not keeping certain areas locked up. Uh, I think that's a big thing. Like it's not, you don't need to change everything immediately, but it's a gradual, like we learned about it all throughout school, what is it? The trajectory of righteousness or whatever. What's it called?
Sanctification.
Sanctification. Yeah. The, um, like it's a gradual, change. There will be moments where you're up and down, but gradually you should be on an upward trajectory. And there's certain moments or certain, areas that'll get
Mm-hmm.
highlighted at certain times.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, just listening and opening yourself up to correction by God. Because I think we can get in our like daily routines and habits and things, and we're just living life without actually thinking about how can I walk in light and how can I get rid of darkness? How can I stop sinning? Because at the end of the day, like we are not called to walk in sin, but to walk with the Spirit and walk with Christ and stopping your sin habits is like how we do that. And we do that again by accountability, by the church, by the people of God, by reading scripture and praying and doing what Christ has called us to do here on earth, and evangelizing and witnessing and living the life that God has called us to live, which takes so much sacrifice, sacrificing your own self and your old ways of living and your habits and things, and picking up your cross and actually following him. That is what light looks like in our daily life. And it says you'll be as changed as you want to be. If you want to be changed by Christ and like your life completely transformed, then there's a process of doing it, of actually putting your faith into action. And it's difficult. And that's the uncomfortable part that we were talking about, that light exposes. And are we going to actually let Christ light up our life or not? But yeah, that's my thoughts.
I think another big thing is learning the difference between walking in the light and running from darkness. I think there's a huge difference there. Like Jesus walked in the light, and like what is it? What the scripture says that darkness doesn't drive the light out. So anywhere that he walked lit up. He wasn't running from places that seemed dark. Like the Pharisees would point out him hanging out with certain people, like you're not supposed to hang out with them, they're sinners. He was lighting up the darkness. And I think that's an important thing too. Like we'll run from, which I think, like I'm not trying to say just to be unwise and go into like evil
Yeah.
situations, but like there's a difference between the two is what I'm trying to get at. And I think we can often confuse them and say that, we're doing a good thing by fleeing all these people who need that light. Does that make sense, John?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. We have to be the hands and feet. Mm-hmm. Jesus also said, "You are the light of the world," talking about the church. So yeah, we're called also to be the light. But yeah.
And so don't forget to follow us on whatever streaming platform you guys use. Give us a like if you're enjoying the content. Helps get the podcast out to more people. And if you guys have any questions, any topics that you'd like for us to speak about, you can contact us at simplybiblicalpodcast@gmail.com and on Instagram at simplybiblicalpodcast. Thank you guys again for listening to the Simply Biblical Podcast, where our goal is that all people would know Christ through the study of his word. And we'll see you next week.